Welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow, ET Now's initiative for the micro, small and medium enterprise sector. On MSME Dialogues today, a special conversation with Narayana Murthy, the founder of Infosys. Take a listen. Thank you very much, Mr. Murthy, for speaking to us on this special interview on the Leaders of Tomorrow on ET Now. It's always a pleasure chatting with you, sir.
It's a pleasure.
I want to kick this interview off by asking you, if there's one piece of advice that you would have for the viewers of the show, for MSMEs and entrepreneurs, what would that be?
If you want to succeed in entrepreneurship, which according to me is a marathon, not a sprint, you have to have two attributes. One is intellect, smartness, competence, that. And the second is a set of good values. That's why even at Infosys, when we had the byline, powered by intellect, driven by values. So therefore, for every entrepreneur who is interested in becoming very big, who is interested in running this marathon, he or she will have to have competence on the one hand, and he or she will have to subscribe to values on the other hand. That's what I would say.
Are you happy with the kind of innovation that is happening in India right now, particularly amongst MSMEs?
Oh yeah, absolutely. There are youngsters who have gone into e-commerce. There are youngsters who are providing new models of public health care. There are youngsters who have come out with soft drinks that are in the same space as Coca-Cola and Pepsi, but they have created their own subcategory. There are youngsters who are working on new models of education. So I've always been a great supporter of youth and the power of innovation. So therefore, I'm quite happy, absolutely.
You're speaking of innovators and the youth. We here on Leaders of Tomorrow have been speaking to a whole bunch of innovators and entrepreneurs who are below 30. Do you think that as a segment, as a category is really going to pick up, that we're going to see more and more young people who are coming up and really disrupting the space?
Oh yeah, if you look at the US, most of the transformational ideas have come from people who are below 30, whether it was Bill Gates, whether Mark Zuckerberg, whether it was Larry Page. Every one of these were people who were below 30. And the same story even in India. You look at any of the well-known and successful startups, they were all started by under 30. Infosys, in some sense, was an exception because I was 34 and a half when we started, but my colleagues were all 24, 23, 24. So in that sense, even there it is true.
What is the one thing that you think is really working in favor of these entrepreneurs right now in India at the time that we're in terms of the government policies, in terms of maybe external exposure, in terms of the companies globally that are being innovated?
First of all, thanks to the success of a few entrepreneurs who are in their either early 30s or below 30, parents are quite comfortable with their children, with their youngsters going into entrepreneurship. That problem in some way has been completely nicked. Second, the government is very enthusiastic about entrepreneurship. The Prime Minister has created the Startup India and all of that. Third, our entrepreneurs in India are looking at areas which have unmet need within India, using the ideas of the West. Whether, for example, Ola is a classical example of that. Flipkart is a classical example of that. So therefore, all factors, and finally, of course, venture capital is not an issue at all today, right? There is so much of money chasing idea. So I would say this is the most opportune moment for entrepreneurs in India.
So on one hand, of course, you have the opportunities you're talking about. What is the biggest challenge, though, that you see when it comes to innovating in ideas?
Well, there are several challenges. First of all, at the ground level, we have to reduce bureaucratic hurdles for youngsters. Well, there is no doubt at all at the level of Delhi, definitely this government has been very, very proactive in reducing bureaucratic hurdles. Everybody has done a good job. The bureaucrats that are in position, they are extraordinarily smart, they are very oriented towards making life easy for Indian citizens. There is no doubt Delhi is not the issue. But at the ground level in states, there are some states which have done a good job, but I think by and large, we need to remove all hurdles for youngsters. Second, our education system has not really helped our youngsters to use what they learn in the classroom to solve problems around us. Therefore, what is happening is we look at what has succeeded in the West and we try to copy the same here. That is good to some extent, but if we truly want to become a startup nation like Israel, if we truly want to create lots of jobs, our youngsters will have to come out with innovative ideas that help our people solve their own unique problems. For that, our education system has to change. I would say that these are some of the challenges.
I just want to go back to one of your previous answers. So where you were talking about, Startup India. So the government on its part has formulated Startup India, Digital India, Skill India.
That's right.
How do you think MSMEs can really participate more fully in these programs?
Well, first of all, if they can in some way add to the knowledge database, if the country can start a knowledge management system platform, and like Wikipedia, if these youngsters can add their own experiences, their own challenges, how they solved it, etc., to that, and if that could become a keyword search kind of stuff like Wikipedia today is, then I believe we will be able to help so many of the youngsters. Therefore, our young entrepreneurs who are in the medium and small scale industries, etc., they have to learn to share their experiences, their successes, their ingenuity with the rest of the country.
A lot of the MSMEs who write in to us, so we have a call-in show twice a week, tell us that they yet to really see the benefit of these policies like Startup India or Digital India percolating down the pyramid, so to speak, down to these MSMEs. Do you think it's just a matter of scale for them to be able to fully realize the potential?
Well, there are two problems. One is any initiative like this will take time to percolate to the lowest levels in a large country like India with 1.3 billion people. Second, as I pointed out in answer to an earlier question, we have to ensure that the enthusiasm, the confidence, the energy that we see in Delhi is indeed picked up by states too. But that again, there are ideological differences, there are cultural differences, etc., etc. Therefore, it's not an easy job. But if there is a way that we can see the same level of energy, enthusiasm, confidence that we see in Delhi in all the states, then this task will become easier.
You were talking about skilling in a previous answer. Is investment into manpower, into skills at an individual level, like Infosys has done at Mysuru, is that perhaps an only solution in the meantime?
No, you see, only large companies with big revenues, with ability to spend lots of money can do this. I mean, as you know, the Infosys one is the largest in the world. There is nothing like that anywhere else in the world. So therefore, that can't be an example. The best way to democratize the access to such skills is through a Wikipedia kind of experiment. That's where I'm a great fan of Wikipedia, and I'm sure you too would have used it. Anytime I have want to understand something new, I go to Wikipedia because it's all there. It is written by people like you and me. Therefore, we have to start a movement to encourage youngsters to put in the wisdom of all their journeys into Wikipedia and thereby help the future entrepreneurs to overcome their problems. I think that's the fastest way.
All right, let's take a very quick break, but don't go anywhere. On the other side, we'll continue bringing you snippets of that conversation with Narayana Murthy. Welcome back. You're with us here on Leaders of Tomorrow and MSME Dialogues. Today, we're bringing you an exclusive conversation with Narayana Murthy, the founder of Infosys. He spoke to me earlier. Here's what he had to say. So, I want to also talk about mentorship. I know you're a big believer in mentorship. I know there's a very precise, exact system in place in terms of mentorship at Infosys, something that you've instituted yourself. Please talk to us about how MSMEs and entrepreneurs can go about finding a right fit mentor.
Well, at a macro level, it's not that easy. But again, mentorship has to be voluntary. In other words, the mentee who seeks mentors. Number two, it's a private and confidential arrangement. The mentor and the mentee must be absolutely sure that whatever is discussed between them will remain only between them, and also that the mentee should be free to ask, or mentee should feel free to ask any question, personal, official, doesn't matter, whatever. For that to happen, it has to be purely confidential. Third, it cannot be a boss subordinate relationship. In other words, it's the mentee who initiates any request. It cannot be the mentor who says, oh, meet me every Friday. No, it cannot be. Now, doing this at a country level, doing this on a large scale requires considerable effort. What can be done is, if maybe ET or any one of these channels, if you people were to create a platform where all the people that are interested in receiving help from mentors and all the mentors who are interested in adding value, if you can create a roster and then create absolutely private channels for any conversation between them. I think, of course, if you use Facebook or the FaceTime, that's highly encrypted. Nobody else can access that. Therefore, that's a very confidential channel. Something like that can be done, because then you would have conquered the problem of distance. Then you would have brought people who are interested in doing these things on a voluntary basis, and you have got people, mentees who need that help. So we have to create a platform where it can happen on an all India basis.
But do you think this is possibly a sign that the industry is maybe maturing, because the first rush or the first flush of VC funds and too much of VC funds chasing ideas has started sort of settling down and becoming more realistic?
In some way, you're right. But I wouldn't worry too much about what has happened. As I said, it's one instance or maybe two or three instances. But if we get to fundamentals, if we get to good business plans, if we get to estimating revenues, if we get to accurately estimate expenses, And if we ask what are the factors that will lead to this growth, what are the factors that will lead to these expenses, what are the levers that we have to make these things happen, and periodically review these, then I think the confidence of both the entrepreneurs and the VCs will improve. And I don't think whatever happened should be a cause for worry.
Okay.
These things happen after all, it's a small percentage.
Would you agree with the critics who say that VC funds are typically only chasing technology oriented or tech oriented startups?
Well, not really, because let me talk to you about Catamaran. We at Catamaran said, look, our prime objective is to encourage entrepreneurs who can use the power of their ideas to make this a better country. So all our investments are only for India. We don't, at this point, we have not financed any entrepreneur whose ideas are for the US or Europe, etc. And we are into public health, we are into education, primary education, we are into soft drinks, we are into e-commerce, we are into many areas, and not all of them are technology. So it's purely the power of innovation, power of ideas, how smart these people are. But one distinct characteristic of our entrepreneurs is that they are all very smart, very well educated. For example, these guys are, one guy has a PhD from MIT, then another person has a MBA from Harvard Business School, a third person has a PhD from Johns Hopkins, a fourth set of persons, they have MBAs from Wharton. So like that. So we said we will pick smart and competent, bright people, and we will verify whether they have good values or not. So therefore, we are simply following what I started out in 1980, that is the powered by intellect, driven by values, whether that thing exists among entrepreneurs. And we are not focused on technology or anything like that. We are focused on addressing the problems of our people.
Last couple of questions, sir. What advice would you have for the viewers of our show in making themselves more investment ready? And the reason I ask this is that a lot of the MSMEs are family owned and family run businesses, and they say that when they approach the banks or VC or PE funds, that is raised as one of the points of concern when it comes to accessing funding. So how does an MSME make themselves more investment ready?
Well, I think as long as you can establish that your idea is unique and has a differentiated business value proposition vis-a-vis other ideas in the market, that's the first step. Second, can you express your idea in a simple sentence, not a complex sentence, not a compound sentence? Third, do you have a business plan that has ensured that there is a conservative way of estimating revenues? In other words, the revenues are not unnecessarily inflated and the expenses are not unnecessarily deflated, that they are realistic. That's one. Fourth, I would say that these people must bring together a team that has complementary strengths. That is, people with skills in finance, technology, human resources, marketing, sales, etc. And finally, they must have an enduring value system. They must demonstrate that we are trustworthy. Even though we belong to a family firm, we will put the interest of the non-family shareholders as first, before we look after our family interests. If they did that, then I don't see any difference.
We were talking about skills and talent earlier. How does an MSME, how does an entrepreneur really retain talent at a time when, a lot of the students right out of college are preferring your big startups? A lot of the big startups are able to pay much more than, say, possibly an MSME or a small entrepreneur can.
We have come across a lot of these youngsters who joined some of these entrepreneurial companies which gave very high salaries, and then after a year or two they got disappointed because they were not learning. By and large, I have found that youngsters, while they want to have reasonable levels of income, they are much more bothered about learning, because somewhere in their brain they say, some point of time I too want to become an entrepreneur, right? So therefore they say, am I learning in this enterprise? Am I becoming a better professional? Am I becoming a better team leader? Am I learning all that is needed so that I can convert my dreams into reality? So therefore the key thing that we all have to keep in mind is, will the youngsters learn every day in our enterprise? Then they will be in a position to accept even lower salaries because they are looking at the future.
A quick last word. What are the next, say, 5 to 10 years looking like for you at Catamaran?
Well, we go one day at a time. As I said, our vision is to encourage entrepreneurship so that this country becomes better. Therefore, we are looking at basic areas, nutrition, healthcare, education, etc. So if we can make a small dent towards making this country a better place, that's sufficient for us.
With that, it's a wrap on this edition of Leaders of Tomorrow. You can always write in to us at leadersoftomorrow@timesgroup.com, reach us on social media using the hashtag LOT, or call us on the number which is on your screen. Thanks so much for watching.